Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society in general. I am Father George Ehusani, and I have with me in the studio today John Cardinal Onaiyekan, the Cardinal Archbishop of Abuja. Your Eminence, you are welcome.
Thank you. Happy Christmas.
Thank you. It's good to have you in the studio today to discuss Christmas, to discuss this momentous event that began the Christian journey and which we are all celebrating today. But before we discuss that, I would like to read from the Gospel of St. John, chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. Verse 14 now says, and the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. Your Eminence, we are celebrating Christmas, and it's like we are celebrating this text. What is the real message of Christmas?
Thank you very much, Father, and happy Christmas to our viewers. It is indeed very interesting, and I believe quite providential that you have picked this reading from John's Gospel to illustrate what Christmas is all about. Those of us who are familiar with the Gospels will remember that the story of Christmas is told in a totally different way in the two synoptics, in Matthew and Luke. In Matthew and Luke, there we actually heard the story of the event we celebrate at Christmas, the story of the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ in a manger of Bethlehem. The reading from John's Gospel takes a much broader view, more or less giving us what that event means, not just represents, what it actually means. And the core meaning of Christmas is in that last verse. The Word became made flesh and dwelt among us. And I think this is the point we need to emphasize in this particular reflection. Let's forget the razzmatazz of Christmas for the time being. Let's put aside the Christmas carols, which are very wonderful, the journeys and all our highways are now crowded with everybody. If you ask them, we are going home for Christmas. Don't ask them what is Christmas. They know they are going home for some feast. Let's put all those things aside and ask ourselves what exactly Christmas means. And this sense of Christmas is what we have now given to us in the Gospel of St. John. That God, in his almighty power and in his eternal being, who was there at the beginning, there was the Word at the beginning. And at this Word at the beginning, or God at the beginning, the same Word which created, because he spoke and everything came to be.
Let there be light.
That Word, which is the creative Word, which was there at the beginning, we are told, at a given moment in history, became flesh and became human being and dwelt among us. That is this in inner sense of what Christmas means. We now know from science that the vision of the writers of the Old Testament about the distance between the creation story in First Genesis and the present Matthew's Gospel is extremely inadequate from point of view of time frame.
Yes.
We now know we are talking of millions of years. Millions of years. Not only between the beginning of creation and the emergence of human beings, but also between the emergence of the first human being and the birth of Jesus Christ. We're talking of millions of years. Therefore, when St. Paul says, when the appointed time came, God sent his only begotten Son. The power of that expression, the appointed time. That God waited a long time.
Yes.
And when we put all these in historical and temporal perspective, the space between the coming of Jesus 2,000 years ago and today, and the space before the coming of Jesus and the creation, the beginning about which St. John is talking, we are only talking of a small brief moment now. Which is why, in fact, when we hear in the Gospels, Jesus, when we are hearing that, and now in these last days, we are still in the last days.
And normally human beings are like, the end time.
Yeah. And someone has already said, if you put the whole history of humanity, not even the whole of creation, the whole history of humanity into a 24-hour schedule, right now, and if you say that this 24-hour schedule is between the beginning of the arrival of man and the birth of Jesus as the first 24 hours.
Yes.
Now, we will still be in 12, we have not yet reached 1 minute after midnight.
Because of the number of millions of years
that came before,
between creation and the time of Christ.
Precisely. Right now, in the year 2017, we have not even reached 1 minute after Christmas. Therefore, it is really true to say we are living in the last times.
Because the last times can be 1 million years.
Yes, it will still be brief.
Yes.
It will still be a small brief time. Now, we don't think that way often. But God thinks that way.
Because with God, 1,000 years is like a minute.
Yeah, but we can see now. We can see. Now, which means, therefore, that the decision of God at the appointed time to bring about the coming of Jesus Christ on earth is a matter of grave universal consequence, whether you realize it
or not.
And that God not only dwells among us, which is not specifically Christian.
Yes.
Most religions believe in the presence of God in their midst.
Sure.
But that God
took
dwelt
flesh
among us as he came and became human being.
That's unique.
That is Christian. Uniquely Christian.
Yes.
So uniquely Christian that it is simply considered rubbish.
Yes.
And there are many who just say that's nonsense.
Yes.
And we live in Nigeria from point of view of religious faith. We know very well that the 50% or so of Nigerians who are Muslims can't see any sense
in it.
We keep saying that God has a son called Jesus who was born at Bethlehem. Why we put it this way is that Jesus, God did this is totally as a result of his power and his wisdom.
With God, all things are possible.
Precisely. With God, all things are possible. Even what you as a human being think is impossible, with God, it is possible. When I hear people say, God cannot have a son, I say,
Are you playing
since
God?
when did you start knowing what God can do, what God cannot do?
Mm-hmm. So it is presumptuous of any human being.
They say God cannot have a son. Yeah. Who told you that? If God says he has a son, then he has a son.
I mean, our Bible says God just said, let there be light, and there was light. So why can't God decide that to have a son? Yeah. We human beings have no right to delimit what God can do and who God can be, because nobody, no religion, not even Christianity, has a complete picture of who God is. Or monopoly of knowledge.
What we know of God is whatever God reveals to us about himself.
Yes.
He revealed himself received about himself to my ancestor in a given number of ways. And my people know God as far as they were able to
understand it. Yes.
Now, we who are Christians believe that God went a big mile forward by revealing to us that he has a son whom he sent to the world called Jesus. Once you admit that, a whole of other things follows.
Yes.
The power of God is shown, the mercy of God, the love of God above all, because like this Gospel of John, if you go further to read, he will tell you, God so loved the world that
he sent his only Son.
Why did God do this impossible thing? Because of love.
Yes.
And
we read in the book of Hebrews, chapter 1, long ago God spoke to our ancestors in many ways and various ways by the prophets. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by a Son.
And don't forget the last days we were working out.
Trying to work out.
This at the beginning of this reflection, that we are still in 1 minute past midnight. These last days. And that God is still speaking to us through his Son. Through his Son. And when you hear a sense of urgency in the New Testament about the second coming of Jesus, that urgency is still valid even today.
Yes.
Even today. That Jesus, that is taking 2,000 years and Jesus has not come back, that's not a big deal.
Yes, 2,000 years is still...
Yes. Whether it will come after 3,000, 4,000, 5,000,
1 million.
Another 1 million years, we don't know. The only thing we know is that we have a task to perform in the meantime.
Now, Your Eminence, the work of the prophets that prepared for the coming of Jesus. I mean, we hear such wonderful visions of Prophet Isaiah, Prophet Zephaniah, Prophet Baruch, about the messianic times and what wonderful scenes will be evident. Love among men and women. The lion will lie down with the lamb. The child will play into the hole of the cobra, and no one will hurt the other, because the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. These are the kind of readings we read during Advent. How is this to play out as we celebrate Christmas? How do we put this into practice? I imagine that these readings are more a challenge. Those metaphors that we come across in Isaiah and in Baruch and in Jeremiah about the messianic times, I take them as a challenge for believers.
Yeah, you have practically answered the question, but let me say, I'm not answering anything but making two observations. The first observation, which is the most fundamental: if you are convinced that God has a complete picture of things,
yes,
or rather, you must believe that God has a complete picture of things to make meaning of any messianic or prophetic sayings.
Okay.
We must believe that with God, nothing is hidden.
Yes.
It is because of that God can decide to pick prophets and fill them with his knowledge to know what is going to happen.
Inspiration.
He inspires them. Mm-hmm. And therefore, those images you are talking about in the prophetic writings are all products of God's own inspiration. Mm-hmm. Why is this so? Because God knows all.
Yes.
God knows, and God knew about the work he intended to do with his Son Jesus Christ. We in the Catholic Church have even gone a bit further by insisting that God already knew the details of how Jesus was going to come into this world. He knew he was going to come into this world through a new Eve, yes, called Mother Mary. By the way, St. Paul made reference to that in his Galatians text, and when the appointed time came, God sent his Son, born of a woman. This woman,
yes,
the same woman in the Garden of Eden. That God had all this clearly before his mind, which is why even we in the Catholic Church also said that God already had in mind from all eternity Mary, yes, and prepared her,
yes,
for this great event of Word becoming flesh.
In chapter 15 of Genesis chapter 3, where your seed will strike,
yes, that is that of the serpent,
yes,
and the seed of the woman, and the seed of the woman will strike you. Now, which means, but all this can only make sense, yes, if you are operating within the ambit of a God who knows all and who does all,
and who has a plan,
a plan of God. And that is why it is the greatest blessing on any human being that you are informed about the plan of God, and above all, you are, as it were, drafted into that
To be part
plan.
of the plan of God.
And whatever your role in that plan is a great joy.
Isn't this
And that is why the way the plan of God is worked out in the life, death,
and resurrection and
Jesus
ascension
Christ
of Jesus? Yes.
is the model of how we all should be looking forward to be part of this plan. And this plan is my plan for you is
Good, for good. This is a wonderful thing, especially for our people who are going through difficult times. The realization that this world is not planless.
No.
That there is an overarching controller who has a plan, who has a design, and that those plans will come to pass.
And in that plan, what we know of this world is only a little part of that plan.
Okay. It's a more gigantic plan.
And this is just a little part of it. Well, whatever happens to you, this little part of it, the picture is not ended.
Yeah.
There is still
More.
maybe the major one coming ahead. Or to put it differently, our account is not balanced here on earth.
It can never be balanced here.
If it were balanced, then very often we will say Jesus didn't keep his account well. When you find a man who was a good man, lived his life, suffered a lot, and died,
Yes.
and nothing good came out of it, and the rest of the world look at him and say, look at, he wasted his life. They are the ones who don't know what is happening. God has his plan, and difficult it is as it may be for us to know, that was God's plan for this gentleman. And if he lived his life or her life with a sincere belief that he's going according to God's plan,
then it's fulfilled. Isn't this what St. Paul meant in 1 Corinthians 15:19 when he says, if our hope in Christ were for
only for this world alone, there will be the worst, the most wretched
of all
the
people.
most wretched of all people.
Yeah.
You said that in respect of the resurrection of Jesus, which becomes the basis of your resurrection and my own.
Yes.
If there were no resurrection of the dead and everything ends up in this world, what a pity then.
Yes, what a pity.
It means that we have just lived our lives in vain.
And on the basis of the resurrection, we are able to understand even the incarnation better.
Of course. The incarnation is not a necessity. Is the plan of God out of his own wisdom and knowledge. Wisdom, knowledge, and power.
Yes.
That he has decided to come into our human history, and decides he's going to do it in this particular way. Let's not forget that God could have actually come into human history as a human being by simply dropping down from the sky.
Or from underneath.
At any given moment, drop down in adulthood and work miracles and speak wonderful things and disappear.
He has the power to do that.
He could have done it that way. But no, he went through this, I would say, rather tedious way. But at the end of the day, it shows how God really has been part of our history. This child was born like the rest of us. He was conceived, but in the special way that he was, through the power of the Holy Spirit. From that point on, everything else worked on naturally. 9 months in the womb, a year or so, sucking his mother's breast like every child did. Lived through his life till 30 years or so of age. And even then everybody saw him. Is that not the son of the carpenter? What has come over him?
Nothing special at the beginning.
And even when he started working miracles, he's just like one others of those miracle workers. And by the way, the miracle workers of today should not think that they are anything we never heard about.
Because they were there.
They are miracle workers everywhere.
I mean, Jesus Christ says, if you call me that I do my miracle through Beelzebul, your own expert.
Exactly. So there's nothing. And he lived his life until Calvary. And then the rest of the story: Calvary, burial, resurrection. Those 40 days of interaction with the risen Christ are very important to solidify the faith that indeed God came into this world. And then with the ascension, again another mystery.
Now, Your Eminence, let's go back to the concrete, what is supposed to be the spirit of Christmas. I have a text here. I will just read a little excerpt from Pope Francis, a text about Christmas, that beyond what he called the razzmatazz over Christmas, Pope Francis began to use the images of Christmas to say, we need to give witness to the spirit of Christmas. The Christmas decorations are you, when your virtues are colors that adorn your life. The Christmas bell is you, when you call, gather, and seek to unite. You are also a Christmas light when you illuminate with your life the path of others with kindness and patience and joy and generosity. Now, the Christmas angels are you, when you sing to the world a message of love and justice and peace. So what is it saying? And then what have you to add to this message to say, let the spirit of Christmas be seen in you, in your person?
The text you have just read is very typical of Pope Francis, who has a very creative way of saying things, but very profoundly. So I would say that this is a message that is a challenge to those who believe in what, or who ought to believe in what Christmas is all about. We can actually say that there are two levels of Christmas every time we can celebrate Christmas. There's the Christmas of those of us who believed that we are celebrating the Word made flesh and dwelt among us.
Yes.
With all that entails. And this kind of text applies to us. But there's a Christmas of those who believe that this is really a great occasion. There was a great man who lived 2,000 years ago. His name was Jesus. We don't know how, but he has become so important and has influenced the life of so many people. And we have so many friends around who think he's a great person. So it is worth celebrating. And even the government decides to give us two public holidays. That is another Christmas. Another level of Christmas. I would say that the two levels are linked. The two levels are linked. Without the first,
you can't have the second.
Would not happen. And I have a feeling that even those who do not believe in the Word made flesh, when they celebrate the second level with us, somehow something hits their mind. And maybe following for Pope Francis, it is the duty therefore of those of us who believe to create this link, to allow them to go from the celebration to the reality.
What you are saying about link will then be love.
Yeah, well, whatever you call it.
Love.
Whatever you call it. If somebody during this Christmas you decide to be extra generous, and you know somebody who is going through really serious hard times, and you go out of your way, and to his great amazement, to show special kindness to him and simply say, I just want to wish you a happy Christmas. So that's all you need to say.
Yes.
And he say, oh, so it is because of Christmas. I know that Kuje prison is always looking forward to Christmas. Because the Cardinal is coming to visit.
Yes.
And not only visiting alone, he will come with a crowd. In fact, the crowd has become so many that invade the prisons that this year, due to the special security alert, they were begging us, please reduce your crowd. Keep your crowd to be around 200 and no more.
The Cardinal Archbishop of Abuja has a ritual at Christmas visiting the Kuje prison. And now so many people from so many parishes join him to visit the prison that, as he says, the prison authorities are saying, please reduce your crowd. And they don't just go empty-handed. They do go, by the grace of God, with Christmas gifts for the prisons and for the prisoners. This is a wonderful initiative, and I think many are copying it now.
I raise it now because every prisoner now knows Christmas is coming.
Yes.
Cardinal will come. Apart from the things we give, we also
interact.
We interact. We give them the opportunity. The stage plays, and they are extremely brilliant plays about the reality, especially the reality of Nigeria, of which they are at the receiving end. And we see it so clearly. And for them, that they are able to even express themselves.
Express that, yes.
Is something to look forward to on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
I met a gentleman the other day who said, I was released from Kuje prison 6 months ago. I'm still trying to settle. When I came, I thought I wanted to greet you. You always came every Christmas. Do you remember the person who was always newscasting? Say, I was the one.
I'm the newscaster in the prison.
I said, have you presented yourself to NTA or any of this? He said, no, who will take me there? I said, okay, I will take you there and tell your story. You don't have to be employed, but let them give you one small bit, maybe once a week, to newscast like
That would be wonderful.
That would be wonderful. I'm not heading, I'm not saying, but I intend to actually do that. But this is what I mean, and I think Pope Francis' statements are very good, that all the things we say we do in Christmas, let it go beyond show.
Yeah.
It's not enough to put up nice flowers. Let these flowers be actually the flowers
represent something
of our lives. Yeah. Yes. And if you are exchanging gifts, don't exchange gifts with, not just exchange gifts. I give you
and then you give for the same person who can give you back.
Don't give to those who will not give you back anything. And be kind. I must say, and I take this opportunity to say it, that the people of Abuja are extremely good. They always bring gifts to my house. But they know that it is not for me. How many cows will I eat? How many goats will I eat?
It is for
them. They know that I'm going to give it out.
Even the widows I'm taking care of, I also have benefited from the gift from your house.
Yes. People know. They think that Cardinal is giving things at Christmas. And people then will say the Christians are celebrating Christmas. They will also go forward to know that they are celebrating the birth of Jesus. Who is Jesus? From that point on, we know those who know the full Jesus, who is the Son of God made man, or the Jesus who was just a great founder of a great religion. Whether you believe in that religion or not, it is something great. Yeah. I have a friend, a Jew, who says, for us Jews, we keep wondering, what has come over these Gentiles that they are making such a big deal of a useless rabbi? Because, by the way, this brings me to the question with which we started about the promises of the prophets and about the Messianic era. And we look around us and we said, well, Jesus has come, the Messiah has come, but we haven't seen the fulfillment of all the prophecies. My good friend, Rabbi David Rosen, I got the opportunity to ask him to talk to a group of pilgrims some 7 years ago. And he completely, what will I use? He made my pilgrims so angry.
By saying what is all this?
We made a statement to the fact that, you see, we Jews don't believe that the Messiah has come. You Christians says he has come. We don't believe he has come because according to our prophets, if he has come, this world will not be what it is now. When we look around, we have not seen the signs of the arrival of the Messiah. So don't blame us. And we think we know what our prophets said. Well, maybe you didn't understand.
We think we should understand better than you.
Exactly. That as far as we know, according to what our prophets have said, this world has not been redeemed. You say the Messiah has come. So anyway, we don't have to quarrel too much, he says. Because we are still waiting for the Messiah to come. You are saying that he has come, but that he will come again. When he comes again,
maybe we will believe that.
No, so when he comes again, we Jews will ask him, brother, have you been here before?
On that note, we will bring this segment of the program to an end. There is clearly a difference between us and the Jews who are still waiting for the Messiah. We believe the Messiah has come and that he will come again. Your Eminence, it was wonderful to have you. We'll have you again for the next segment to talk about Christmas and the implications for the Nigerian situation. Thank you, viewers.
Thank you.